Well, good morning, everyone. In case you don't know who I am, my name is Devin. I'm the family ministries person here at Village Green. And I am really excited to be here and to be able to share God's word with you. I think it's such a blessing that I get to, from time to time, come up here and just share what God's been teaching me and what he's been challenging me and encouraging me with you guys. And I'm hoping that you also will be challenged and encouraged and be able to move forward more in your faith each day. So in case you don't know, we're in the middle of a series called Unlikely Heroes. And this has been such a great series, especially for the summer, because in case you're sitting here and you're like, this is my first Sunday, now I realize I'm in the middle of a series, I have no idea what this guy's talking about. That's wrong, because each week we've been tackling a different story, a different narrative of these awesome characters, these awesome unlikely heroes that are from the Bible. And so today, if this is your first Sunday here, we're glad that you're here with us, and you'll be able to track along because this is the first time they're going to learn from this story as well. But in case you do want to go back and you do want to check things up, especially with life group seasons coming, just know that you can listen to our sermons on YouTube, you can get them on our website, and then you can also find them on podcasting apps. They're very easy to find. But what I've really been appreciating about this series so much is the narratives. I love a good story. I mean, who doesn't? But quite often, I find I underestimate the Bible narratives. Now, when it comes to it, it's because I'm still a kid at heart, and sometimes in my actions. But when I come to a Bible story, whether I'm reading it on my own or whether someone's preaching on it, I get all excited because I'm like, oh, I know the story. And then I start just going through it really fast, and I'm like, this is great, wow, that's cool, close my Bible, God's great, and I move on. And that's good, but I always forget every single time that you can actually learn stuff from the stories as well. And that's why I've loved this series so much, because John has shared all of these stories, but he's also shared real life application that we can take from it. And I'm hoping I can do that with you this morning, because these unlikely heroes are people that we can look to and model as we live our everyday lives. So I wanted to bring back a point that John's been sharing throughout the series, and that's the two definitions of what an unlikely hero is. So the first definition is an unlikely hero is a person who is carrying a significant life burden, but who carries it with faith, dignity, integrity, and perpetual hope. And just by that definition alone, that's a hero I want to believe in. That's a hero I would love to be. Someone that just, and no matter what comes before them, faces it with faith, dignity, integrity, and perpetual hope. That's awesome. Then the next definition is an ordinary person whom God uses for extraordinary result. And I love that because we're all ordinary people. And that means God is capable of using each and every one of us. And I know sometimes people think the word ordinary is bad, but it's not. It just means that you're human. So you're ordinary. It's not a bad word. But before we dig into today's story, before we get into it, I want to start things off with a question. So a question that I have for you is, have you ever felt called to do something that you have no idea how to do? Have you ever felt this passion, this burning, deep desire deep down inside your heart, and you're like, I know I'm supposed to do something, but there's just no way I could do it? Maybe the opportunity comes before you, whether it's in prayer through God or someone approaches you and says, hey, I want you to take part in this, whatever it is. Maybe it's volunteering in kids ministry. And shameless plug, I know. But, they come and they approach you and you're just thinking, why would they ask me? Or am I even able to do that? Or do I even have the skills necessary? I've been in that situation time and time again, and I wanted to share one of them with you. But before we do that, we have to do a little bit of imagination. So you have to imagine high school Devin. So high school Devin's the same height, had a little bit of a bigger belly, full head of hair, but no beard. So I don't know if we can trust high school Devin. But as we take a trip down memory lane, the one thing I remember most of my high school version of myself is I thought I had my life all figured out. I was like, you know what? I am in grade 10, grade 11, and I know everything. So I was 100% settled on where I was going in life, what I was going to be doing, and it was because I excelled in one area of school. and that was mathematics. I was really good at math, and I liked working with my hands, so I was like, I'm going to go into the trades, and it's going to be awesome. And I was working towards being a millwright. I had taken all the classes I needed for it. I had co-opted with a millwright, and he was like, well, he was kind of a grumbly old man, but sometimes he would say nice things to me, like, you have a future in this. And that meant a lot, because he was normally just not really happy. So, but I was really, really determined that I was going to work on trades. And that was a great life plan. Here's the problem. I didn't consult God. When I was a kid, I committed my life to God. And what that means is you are surrendering yourself, you're surrendering your plans, your ideas, your vision, your hope for a far greater one. And quite often, God's plan is not how we see it. So I didn't consult God, but I figured, hey, he made me good at math. Clearly, he's going to call me to some form of mathematics. I'll just keep pursuing this trade thing. It'll work out. By the time I hit grade 12, he took that desire completely away. I remember sitting in those classes, and I'm like, I hate these classes. They're so boring. They're no fun. I don't want to do this anymore. And right before you apply to college is the best time to have an identity crisis. So I'm going through that. I'm struggling. I'm just like, I don't know what I want to do. And God just keeps saying, Bible school. Now, he probably said pastor, but I was nowhere ready to listen to that. So he just kept saying, Bible school. Do you know what Bible school doesn't have? Math class. There is zero math involved. The only mathematical equations I did in Bible school, and I'm a little ashamed to admit this, so John, don't judge me. The only mathematical equation I did was how badly did I have to study for my final exam, where you figure out like what kind of percentage I need to get in order to pass the class. I'm not proud of it, but Bible school, if you were to classify it, would be English and history and languages. But trust me, French class never helps you for Greek and Hebrew. So I remember sitting there and finally saying, okay, maybe I'll go to Bible school. But all my head was full of was all the reasons why I shouldn't. So I thought to myself, English and history are my worst marks. I had to try my hardest in those classes, and I didn't do that well. And then I realized I'm probably going to have to read when you're in Bible school. And which, trust me, you do. In your whole first year, you read the entire Bible, just as an extracurricular reading part to 2 classes. So you do a ton of reading. I was a really slow reader. I still am a slow reader. I'm a little bit faster than I used to be. And then lastly, and this was the icing on the cake, I knew that if you're involved in ministry, you have to stand in front of people and you have to talk. And that was not my jam. High school, Devin, could not public speak. The last speech I did was in grade 10, and I found a way to avoid them from there on out. But in grade 10, we had to do a 7-minute speech on a topic that we were passionate about. That's basically handing you an easy A. I failed. I got 2 minutes in, I got really nervous, and I choked. And I just said, that's all I have, and I sat down. When you only speak for 2 of 7, that's a failing mark. Doesn't matter if you spoke amazing for the 2 minutes, still a failing mark. And so I remember sitting there and thinking, okay, here are all the reasons why there's no way I could ever be involved in ministry, let alone being a pastor one day. But God still called me to ministry. I had a list of reasons why I shouldn't, but I truly believed I wasn't the right person for it. But God doesn't always call the obvious person. He doesn't always call the people that you would expect to step into the role. Quite often, he calls the unlikely person. And that's what we're going to look at today. This is what God did with the hero that we're going to dig into. So we're going to look at the book of Nehemiah. We're going to learn his story and what he did. So let's dig into that. Nehemiah 1, verses 1 to 4 says, "These are the memoirs of Nehemiah, son of Hekeliah." I'm going to butcher all of these names, but I'm going to say them with confidence. "In late autumn, in the month of Kislev, in the 20th year of King Artaxerxes' reign, I was at the fortress of Susa. Hanani, one of my brothers, came to visit me with some other men who had just arrived from Judah. I asked them about the Jews who had returned there from captivity and about how things were going in Jerusalem. They said to me, Things are not going well for those who return to the province of Judah. They are in great trouble and disgrace. The wall of Jerusalem has been torn down, and the gates have been destroyed by fire. When I heard this, I sat down and wept, and in fact, for days I mourned, fasted, and prayed to the God of heaven. There is a lot to unpack in just those 4 verses, let alone the whole 12 chapters of the book. I'm going to by no means do this book justice this morning, so please read it yourselves, because there's a lot of really awesome things in here. But first, we need to answer this question. Who is Nehemiah? Because we know these are memoirs of him, and this whole book's going to be about him and his journey with God. But who is this guy? Well, he's a man who worked for King Artaxerxes, and for the sake of me not butchering his name, that's probably the last time I'm going to say it. He was the king's cupbearer. So he was someone that was kind of higher up. He would have been dressed nice. In case you don't know what a cupbearer is, he's the person that fetched the drinks for the king and for the queen. He also made sure they were safe, that there was no poison in them. And so he was a well-trusted person. People would have looked at him and been like, oh, that's Nehemiah. The king trusts him. He's got to be a great dude. He would have been dressed nice. He would have been able to have the nice luxuries, regularly, having a clean-shaven face and showering and all that kind of stuff. He would have been done up and done well, probably had a lot of jewelry to look fancy. I mean, he would have been someone people would have looked to and been like, that's Nehemiah. And in reality, if we're being completely honest with ourselves, Nehemiah has absolutely no reason whatsoever to care about the state of Jerusalem. At all. He's not there. He's not going to be there. So, as far as he's concerned, life is good. Why should he care? But Nehemiah does care quite a bit. And I find that funny because he probably never had been to Jerusalem. He wouldn't have had the chance to have. They were in captivity before. And then he worked for the king. And the king isn't going to go to Jerusalem, to a place that's in despair. He's going to stay in his fortress where everything's good and his guards are good. But in verse 3, he inquires about the state of Jerusalem. So let's read that again. In verse 3, it says, "They said to me, 'Things are not going well for those who return to the province of Judah. They are in great trouble and disgrace. The wall of Jerusalem has been torn down, and the gates have been destroyed by fire.'" So Nehemiah asks these guys that come to visit him, how's it going? What's it looking like? And they're honest with him. It's bad. It's really bad. The people are disgraced. The walls are destroyed. The gates have been burned. And the reason why this has happened is because they were in captivity before. And when a nation takes over another nation, they don't send fix-it builders to make it better in case one day they get free. They would leave it destroyed, most likely as a sign to show off, this is how powerful we are. Remember that city, how strong it was? Now it's in ruin. And people in the surrounding nations, they probably would have came in and plundered and taken anything that the armies didn't. The houses would have been destroyed. The walls are destroyed. Gates are destroyed. Everything is destroyed. It would have been rubble. And the people are just living in this rubble. The way I imagine it, if we were to have something similar today, it would be like living in a house that has no doors. No exterior doors, no bedroom doors, no bathroom doors. That's awkward. The whole time you live there, you'd be in constant fear, slightly paranoid. Is someone going to come in? Is an animal going to come in? What can stop them? Am I going to wake up and everything's stolen? Am I going to wake up and be chained, put back in slavery? The people would have been paranoid the whole time. And I don't blame them because they had nothing to protect themselves. And all the surrounding nations, they all had walls. They all had gates. They had doors on their houses. They had security. They had everything. And here's Jerusalem with nothing. Open. Vulnerable. Nobody wants to be vulnerable. So how does Nehemiah respond? Well, verse 4 explains it very plainly. "When I heard this, I sat down and wept. In fact, for days I mourned, fasted, and prayed to the God of heaven." Nehemiah responds with great emotion. He cries over Jerusalem. He cries over the state of his people. mean, he's still doing really well. And it says that he spent days fasting, praying. In fact, the whole rest of the chapter is him praying with God. And he's just crying out to God. He's begging for forgiveness of his sins. He's begging for forgiveness of his people's sins. And he's begging for the restoration of Jerusalem. He feels this deep call down inside his heart. And I want to say this again. He has never even been to Jerusalem. He probably hasn't even met these people. His life is going great. Why does he care? Clearly, God is working in him and calling him to something new, something greater, something different. Now, what's he going to do? After he's done fasting and praying, he does something that, as most professionals know, is kind of a bit of a faux pas. He takes his personal struggle to work. If you're in a business world, you know that quite often if you have something struggling personally, when you're at work, you're supposed to just do your job and then deal with it outside of it. Is that easy? No. By no means is it easy. I don't think I've ever done that right once in my entire life. But that's the expectation. And depending on your career, it can be detrimental. If you take your personal struggle and it affects how you are in work, you could treat people the wrong way. You can treat your boss the wrong way. Or your performance level can go down. And if you're in a performance-based career, that's dangerous. But when you work for a king, you wish you were working in a performance-based career. Because it wasn't just that he had to be like sad in front of the king, is that his job expectation is that he wouldn't be. It was expected that he would be happy, that everything would be calm. Everything's great before the king. He would be composed and kept and always be on his best for the king. So for him, doing that, being sad in front of the king, having a sad day, could be very bad because at best he loses his job. That's best case scenario. Worst case scenario is he gets killed. Medium case, he loses everything and thrown in jail or slavery. Job punishment's a lot worse back then than it is today. Thank goodness. So his sadness before the king means that he must really be moved. He must really feel like he needs to show it. Because he's putting everything at risk to be sad before the king. Everything. And it continues on to say that the king actually looks at him and says that, I know when you're sad because you're sick, and you're not sick. So this must be a sadness of your heart. Scripture also tells us that Nehemiah is filled with fear when he says that. Then the king does something that Nehemiah probably wasn't expecting. He asks, what's wrong? Nehemiah shares about Jerusalem, shares about the state of the city, the nation, how the people are just struggling and they're not doing okay. And he's like, my heart is breaking for them. Chapter 2, verses 4-5 says, the king asked, well, how can I help you? With a prayer to the God of heaven, I replied, if it please the king, and if you are pleased with me, your servant, send me to Judah to rebuild the city where my ancestors are buried. So let's look at the facts. All right, Nehemiah, the cupbearer to the king, he's having a sad day at work. King notices he's sad, asks him what's up. Nehemiah shares about this. And the facts about this is the part that still boggles my mind. For the king, Jerusalem being in ruin is a good thing, because it means they are not a threat. For the king, Jerusalem in ruin means they're never going to be a threat. So for the king, logically, when he hears that news, he should go, that's great. I'm sorry you're sad. Now get me wine. That's how the conversation should have gone. But the king replies with, how can I help you? Now this brought relief to Nehemiah because he's like, I'm not dying yet. This is good. But this also probably brought a bit of fear because now he knows that the king values him and trusts him and cares enough about him to ask if he can help. But he doesn't know how much. So now he has to assess, what am I going to ask for? And I love how Nehemiah responds. He pauses and he prays. And he asks God to guide him. And then God guidingly tells him to ask to be sent to go and repair the walls. Now, this is actually a very funny response, and probably the boldest one Nehemiah could have made. Right, he's before a king. This king has money. This king has people. This king has people with money. He could have asked, can you send people to build the wall? The king probably would have been like, done. Go repair it. Send out papers. People would have gone and done it. He could have asked, could you send a project manager to rally the people so they can get their city in order? And he could have been, done. I know just the guy. Here's a paper. He'll go tomorrow. But instead he goes, can you send me to go? He's asking the king to give up. Because he's the trusted cupbearer. He's the one that the king trusts with his drinks. He's saying, can you give me up and let me go? The other funny part about this is Nehemiah is a cupbearer, not a wall builder. We don't even know if he's done it before. He hasn't even seen Jerusalem. He has no idea what it's going to even be like. He has no idea what he's getting himself into. He's like, can you send me? I want to go and do this. I mean, for the king, this is a lose-lose. Even at best case scenario, he's risking every time he takes a sip of something. Or he hopes his backup cupbearer is as trustworthy as Nehemiah is. I mean, I don't know the string of command in cupbearers. I'm not sure, but I don't think there's that many. Because there's not that many people the king would trust. Yet the king sends him. He approves his time off. He gets his vacation. But he doesn't just do that. The king doesn't just say, okay, go ahead and try. He says, okay, I'm going to let you go, but it's not safe out there, so I'm going to send guards with you, so you have protection. Oh, and here's a paper. Go get the supplies you need from my guy. I'll fund the project. The king, at all costs to him, gives up one of his trusted people, sends out Nehemiah, who has no idea what he's doing, and can make the king look really bad, and funds the whole project. That's a nice boss. That's a very nice boss. And I want to pause the story here. This is why I said I can't do the story justice, because I could go on for hours. There's so much that happens. There's so much to talk about. And that's why I really want to encourage you. Please read Nehemiah today in your own personal devotionals, or this week in your own personal devotionals, because there's so much to pull out of it. I'm going to pause the story here, because there's a lot that we can learn from what just happened with our unlikely hero. Nehemiah is much more than just a good story. He actually lays down the groundwork of what it means to be an unlikely hero. He fits both the definitions with great ease, but also he shows us one of the points that I've learned through studying all of the stories that John's been sharing and that I'm going to share next week and continue on in the story, is that to make a great unlikely hero, you just need to be a person that walks fully in faith. And Nehemiah shows this and lays this out. But I have 4 points of application for us this morning, because I am a firm believer, just like I know John is too, and everyone else is in this church. And we're all firm believers that you all have the capability of being an unlikely hero. You guys are all heroes. All you have to do is walk out in faith. So I have 4 application points for us fellow heroes that will help us as we pursue whatever God calls us to. The very first point is, when God calls, he equips. God doesn't just call you to action and then say, well, I hope you figure it out, bud, and smack you on the back and send you in. He equips you. He prepares you. He helps you along the way. He sends help or gives you the knowledge. He brings people around. Look at Nehemiah. When he asked the king, he just asked if he could go. But because Nehemiah trusted that God was sending him to something greater, he sent protection and he sent all the supplies needed. Guarantee that wall is way better than it would have ever been if Nehemiah just showed up in this rubble of a city and said, okay, let's tear down that building to make this wall. Like, it's already been in ruin. Like, it wouldn't have worked. They would have had to work extra hard to get the supplies. God provided and equipped Nehemiah time and time again. It was not an easy go by any means. Building that wall, there was trouble. The people, they were fighting amongst themselves. There was issues. God equipped Nehemiah to deal with that. The surrounding nations, they did not love the fact that Jerusalem was getting stronger. They were constantly going at it. God equipped Nehemiah to deal with that. There was even a conspiracy that was going to come out about Nehemiah, and God equipped him on how to deal with it. I'll explain more about that conspiracy in a bit. But I want to ask you guys another question. When was the last time you took on a project without knowing the details? When was the last time they said to you, I want you to do this? You're like, sure. And you have no idea who your crew are. You have no idea whether or not you have the supplies. You have no idea even what the expectation is. I mean, some of you might be super brave and you're like, I do that every day. My hat's off to you because I never do that. I would take it one step farther and say, when was the last time you were willing to do a favor for someone without knowing what it was? I don't do that. I got to know details. I got to know what you expect of me. I don't want to let you down. Nehemiah jumped into this with just a calling on God's heart, on his heart, not knowing what he was going to do. And to be an unlikely hero, we need to step forward when God calls us, just knowing he will equip us. Point 2, stay true to God's calling. When God calls us to action, it's extremely easy to get distracted. In a world where we have literally the world in our pocket, our phones, it's super easy to be distracted. How often do we sit down and have a conversation with someone and you feel it vibrate in your pocket, or you feel it vibrate on the table and you're like, I gotta look. You get distracted. How often do people drift from their mission and values? How many of you have set goals, maybe a New Year's resolution? Are you still following it today? I mean, it's so easy to drift away from the original vision. And Nehemiah was tested time and time again. The surrounding nations did not like the fact that he was there. They did not like the fact that he was rebuilding and strengthening a city that they only saw as a non-threat. And they were becoming a threat because they were becoming stronger. So they were constantly sending messengers to Nehemiah. Come talk to us about this. Come do this. Come do this. Come do this. We have a conspiracy theory about you. All of these things could have pulled Nehemiah away. But you want to know how he responded every single time? He said, what I'm doing is too important for me to go. Because he knew God had called him to build the wall, not talk to the nations. So he built the wall. Nehemiah lays down this amazing example of what it means to stay true to the focus and to the mission. Third point, sometimes you just have to take action. From our perspective, it's terrifying. The way I envision anytime I've been called to take action, I imagine myself as a little kid. I don't know why, but I just become a little kid. And I see fog in front of me, and all I hear is just step through it. Just step through it. And on the other side, God is right there, and his hand is not even an inch from me, and he's like, just step through it, I've got you. But I'm so scared to take that step. Sometimes we just have to take the action. Sometimes we just have to do it. And when we're there, God's like, see, it wasn't that bad. And he holds our hand, and he walks us through it. That's the love of our Father, and that's amazing. Nehemiah, when he was talking to the king, when the king asked him what was wrong, he could have just smiled and said, nothing's wrong, my king. Everything's great in your reign. But instead, he took action, and he shared his heart. And he shared the state of Jerusalem with them. And because of it, God used Nehemiah in an amazing way. Sometimes God just says, just do this. I'll work the rest out. And you just need to step out and trust that he's going to do it. The last point, When God is for us, nothing can stand against us. If we aren't careful, this can seem like a lie. And the reason for it is because we can look at Nehemiah as the example. If you read his story, he had opposition upon opposition upon opposition. The people were constantly coming at him, the surrounding nations. There was inner turmoil amongst the people. I mean, the nations even threatened to attack them while they were building the wall. So Nehemiah had to come up with a strategy. He's like, all right, you're going to work with one hand and have your weapon in the other. And we have a series of horns around, and we're going to blow the horn, and everyone run to the horn if you hear it. Like, they were building in fear. But every single time there was an opposition, God gave Nehemiah a plan. And this conspiracy theory that they were trying to do was like, would have stopped me in my tracks. And this shows just truly how faithful Nehemiah is. They approached Nehemiah with a messenger and they said, we've heard that you are rebuilding this city, this nation, because you want to be king here. And we've heard that you are going to overthrow the king. That's your plan. That's your goal. And we're going to go tell him. Could you imagine for a second being the king hearing that? You know that guy that you trusted? He's looking to backstab you. You know that guy that you funded his project? Yeah, he's going to use it against you. That wouldn't go well for Nehemiah. But how he responds, he just says, what I'm doing is far too important for me to deal with you. And just trust that God has it. That could have been utter ruin for Nehemiah. He put his whole life in God's hands and just said, okay, God, you're going to do this and I'm just going to keep working. When God is for us, stuff, people, things will stand against you. If you've gone through any trial, any temptation, you know things come up against you. But they always fail in comparison to God. Every single time. God wins. Nehemiah sets an extraordinary example of putting faith in God's plan for his life. He trusts God wholeheartedly, even when he shouldn't. He's just, because everything for him was going great. All he had to do was ignore that call in his heart, and he would have had a wonderful life. Instead, he took on struggle and trial and temptation and way more hardship than he probably ever would have seen. But he knew that when God's plans laid out, it was going to be far greater. And the wall got built. The nation got stronger. Nehemiah brought Ezra in and he read the law to the people and they repented of their sins and they started pointing back to God. It was a great rebuild for the nation that was once in captivity. I want to challenge us as a church to be people that take action when we're called. When God calls you, when he tugs you on your heart, take action. Trust him. Move forward. It's so worth it. To go back to my story at the beginning, the action that I took in that moment was I decided I would apply anyways. And I filled out my application and I went to school. And at that point, I was thinking I would just be a missionary because missionaries don't have to talk in front of people as much. And I was like, I can do that. And I still didn't believe I could do it. I actually went into my first year expecting to fail all of my classes. But God brought people around me that helped me. I had some of the smartest people in the school that were helping me. I had no idea what I was doing. They gave me a 10-page paper, and I'm like, well, the biggest paper I've written so far is like 1,200 words, so that's a big gap. But God brought people into my life, like literally some of the smartest people, and John can attest to it because he knows who was around me. Some of the smartest people, and they're just like, oh, this is how you write a paper. And they sat down and taught me how to write a paper. All I did was apply and show up. God worked, and now here I am today. I didn't know I was going to be in ministry, but God called me here because that was his plan for me, and I'm so glad I'm here rather than working in the trades. Because to me, this is far more worthwhile than collecting just a big paycheck. So please, let's be a church full of people that when God calls, we say yes. We step up, we take action, we take charge, and we trust that God can move, that God will overcome, and that he will be far greater than anything that we've ever faced.